rust washer? Yes, it is. Alright, so these are the mains. We're going to clean all this stuff up too before we put it in. Out of the package here. We don't want to be dropping these. Alright, got a main thrust bearing. And the main thrust bearing, it looks like your regular bearing. You know, you got your oil supply holes and your groove for your oiling, but it has these, can you see that? It's got these bearing surfaces right here, and that's the end play of the crank going back and forth in the block. And there's a spec for that. I believe it should be, I don't know the spec yet, but we'll figure that out. Alright, let me grab a rag here. And I'm going to clean all the bearings with alcohol. And the block side bearings, they all have your oil supply holes. And if you look at the block, the bearings have two holes, and the block has one hole. Okay, so you could put the bearings in, you know, you can't put them in wrong. So get it in there, push it down even, and I'm not using lint-free rags, which drives me insane, but you got to be careful if you're not using lint-free rags. When we go to put the crank in, that's where you want to be very careful. You don't want to be nicking any of these bearings or the journals on the crank. We want this thing to spin, and we want to make some decent power and have it reliable. Right, now this set of bearings, which is, you know, packaged with the mains, there's no holes in here. This goes on the girdle side. So we're going to have to install those, but before I do that, I'm going to pop the crank, lay it in here. We're going to cut some plasti gauge. I'm going to torque it down. We're going to have to pop it back off. We're going to have to re-torque it again so we can check for any binding. Of course, we have to use all the ARP assembly lube with the studs. Don't forget that. Don't skimp out on that. That's how they test their bolts for torque. And what other magic they do to these nuts. Alright, let me get the crank. Alright guys, hopefully we can lay this in nicely. Just like that. Alright. Okay. I don't want to move this too much, so I'm going to pick it up a little bit. I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to plasti gauge all the mains right here. We're going to put the girdle on, we're going to torque it to spec, and hopefully we're in range. Now my machinist says he mic'd the crank, and what he would do was just plasti gauge one main and one rod and go from there and not do the other ones. Well, I'm here. I have no time to be anywhere, so I'm going to do them all. That way I know, mostly for peace of mind. guys. You can see we got all the bearings in. I'm going to flip this rag. I'm just using some rubbing alcohol. Anything that might be on these things. Not to go crazy. Just and then we'll be ready to plastic gauge it, and then of course we'll have to take it back apart, and we'll go ahead and we'll put some assembly lube on everything. So I'm going to set this aside somewhere safe. I'll get my plastic gauge. And I just got, this is the plastic gauge. It's a little bit of wax. I picked this up at my local AutoZone. The part number is SPGR-1. It wasn't on none of the racks, it was behind the counter, so. So we got the red and we got the green, and we're going to be using, I believe, the green. And the mains, the clearance we're looking for on the mains, I believe, I'm going to have to look that up. I don't recall exactly. I think it was 0.15, maybe. So you peel it apart, and there's your little wax right there. You cut it just wide enough to sit on the mains. What I'll probably end up doing is find my scissors. So we'll just cut that with that. And the camera probably won't see this, but I'm going to put the plastic gauge right on the top. Hopefully I'll have enough. Yeah, I should have enough to do all the, yeah, I cut that one a little too long. That's okay. Do the rods. Stuck my finger. Alright. Let's see. You guys can see that right there. See the green? You can do that on all the mains. I mean, you don't have to. I'm going to. Now I feel like I'm going to get dirty with this ARP lube. And we're going to tighten everything to 60 foot-pounds in 3 increments of 20. Hopefully we don't have any deflection with the studs. The ARP puts that, I guess it could happen, but we'll see. I haven't really heard about that on the MZR motors. Losing my tools already, guys. What's that? We're going to set our nuts here. These should be 12 mil. Yep. We'll just set that up with this ratchet, and then we'll go ahead and torque. But I got to put all the lube on here. All right, I'm going to set the girdle in there, and then we'll go ahead and do the check-in. Okay, let's see. We have this for the oil pump that goes in the front. This thing is like a puzzle. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and drop that in there, nice and easy. Perfect. All right. Take this. Now, let me see if I have any of this ARP lube left over, so I don't have to waste any of that right now. I like to save that stuff, and I do. I get these with the crank bolts. When I like to put the crank bolts in the LS motors, just because I don't want to do that torque to yield stock stuff, just in case I want to take my balancer off again. So yeah, it's nice to have this stuff. So we'll go ahead and use this, that way we can have extra. That off. We want to put this on the studs. Washers. You know, for the amount of power I've seen some of these motors put out, these are some small nuts. Clean my hands with this crap. Let me bring up the torque sequence. And I'm getting all this from Mazdaspeed.org, I believe it is. You know, guys, if you don't have, you probably have an account. If you don't, you can go over there. I'll show you the torque sequence of the mains. So we got I'm looking at this backwards, but we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you're just going from the inside out. All right. Okay, snug it up. Two. 3. 4. 5, 6. 7. 8. And the reason why we have to do this twice is we can't rotate the crank in here to check to see if it's turning smoothly with the plastic gauge in there. So we have to do it twice. No big deal. Get my other torque. So we're going to do 3 sets of 20. Same order. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so now I'm going to go up to 40. Same order. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now for the final torque of 60 foot-pounds. This crap all on me. Same order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. Shit, I got lost. 6. Alright, we do these. 7. So we're gonna do. I did these ones, yeah, so we're off to this one. Okay. Whew. Take this extension off. Bad angle. Yeah, it's better. Okay. Now that you're all torqued up, guys, you get to take it all apart. So, I'm going to use the torque wrench for that. Torque wrench. Use this guy. So, we'll go in reverse order. Oh, jeez. Did that one. Do this one. Okay. Ooh. Man, these things clamp. Ooh. Okay. We want to take it off the same way. We want to keep that nice and even so we don't disrupt our plastic gauge. All right. When I was torquing these, you know, I've never used the studs before. When I was torquing them, you can almost feel that stud move a little bit. I don't know, it's kind of a weird feeling. Trying to remember what my clearances were supposed to be. You can see the studs. Well, I mean, they're coming out a little bit, but they're only in there hand tight, so you'll have to redo the studs after we do this. It's no big deal. Just hand tight. Alright. Straight up. Okay, and you guys can see, let me see if you can see that. You guys can see the, let's see, can you see that little groove right there in the center? You can see it on the second one in if you look, because the light, that's your thickness, your bearings clearance, right there. So we're going to measure each one of those. I got to look up the spec and see what it was. So 0.0015 is minimum. Maximum should be 0.0039. What we'll do is this millimeter. So you take this and you just rip a piece of this off, and it has your clearances, and that little white one right there is 0.003. So let's see what we got. Yeah, that's pretty good. 0.0015 was the minimum. And that one, so 0.0015. Same there, a little tighter.